Hello, my name is Graham McBride, and I am a licensed professional counselor, and this is the final video in our series about Jonathan Haidt's book, Anxious Generation. We've been taking things away from it and just kind of exposing some of the highlights and going over what the implications might be for us, whether we are kids or teenagers or adults who really care about them. So, in our final video today, we are going to be talking about what can be done at home to support healthier relationships with devices and social media. The first thing to know is the screen time recommendations. These are pulled from the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, as well as the Quebec government, who has also put out some recommendations. It's worth noting that there's not some kind of standardized recommendation. However, especially when it comes to kids under the age of 16, the general rule of thumb should be as little screen time as possible. However, screens are not the enemy, and there are certainly beneficial uses for them. So, a few of those screen time recommendations include: for children under the age of 18 months, screen time should be limited to video chatting with an adult. So perhaps you have family who live away from you and you like to use FaceTime or Zoom or something like that to communicate with them. That is totally fine. But beyond that, putting them in front of a TV or an iPad or some other device should be avoided as much as possible. For children between 18 and 24 months, educational programming could be used, and it should be used, however, with a caregiver. Again, we want to try and avoid putting these young children in front of devices without any other adults involved, simply because this is a time when children are growing, their brains are maturing and developing super fast, and we want to make sure that we're also monitoring whatever comes on the screen, whether it is an ad or another video that you maybe didn't intend for them to watch. That is why that recommendation is in place. Moving on, for children between the ages of 2 to 5 years old, the goal would be to limit non-educational screen time to 1 hour per weekday and 3 hours on weekend days. So again, we've talked about this in previous videos. In the education system currently, there is a lot of screen time, whether it's through Chromebooks or watching educational videos. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the screen time that you at home can control. So non-educational would be anything like video games or social media or watching YouTube videos or something like that. As children get older, their tolerance and the risk factors involved with screen time kind of go down over time. So for children between the ages of 6 to 12, the goal would be to shoot for no more than 2 hours per day for screen-based recreational activities. Again, video games, social media, YouTube videos, whatever your child likes to do on their device or on your device. Keep in mind that one of the major issues with devices for all of us is opportunity costs. So what's important to keep in mind is that even if you do decide to let your child use your device or to have a device of their own, what they really need in addition is to have play opportunities, to get time outside, to move around, etc. All of these recommendations are intended to be in addition to the things that they already need, the activities that are already important for their growth and development. And finally, for teenagers, the goal would be no more than 40 minutes per night on school nights and no more than an hour per day on the weekends. Teenagers should really be getting out into the world and learning how to interact as the young adults that they are, whether that's through a job or through interacting with other peers of theirs. If possible, by this point, hopefully your teenager has learned to make use of whatever form of transportation is most accessible to them, whether that is driving a car or taking the transit system. So again, we want to make sure that teenagers are making the most of their time. The adolescent years are an amazing opportunity for students to take their newfound maturity and apply it to their own hobbies and interests, their education, etc. Beyond these screen time recommendations in general, Another thing that can be done at home is simply to promote play-based childhood and adolescence. Especially when children are young, it's important to set aside time for them to have free play. And remember that free play is time that children are choosing their own activities for the sake of the activities with as little adult involvement as possible. It might be helpful to decide that the time right after school for an hour is set aside for free play, or some other time that works best for you, perhaps after dinner, before bedtime. When possible, it's also really helpful for children to do this free time and free play with other kids, especially if possible with kids of other ages. Again, remember that play is not just an individual activity that children need, but it's also a social activity where they're learning how to interact with other humans well. And they do this best when there are lots of different children and children of different ages. Another way, and this might be a scary one for all the caregivers, but the goal would be to slowly start to practice letting your kids out of your sight without them having a way to reach you. So this might start small. It could look like simply letting them go in the backyard without you being there. Or it could be sending them to the mailbox to get the mail without you watching. Or as they get older, maybe letting them go to a friend's house down the street without you following them or taking them. Or as they get even older, maybe into middle school age, letting them walk to a store to get some milk or whatever you might need from the store. Again, this can be scary and it's a growth opportunity for caregivers and for children, but this is how they learn to build their own autonomy, their own confidence, and for caregivers, it's our way of learning how to let go and to trust them and to show them that we know that they can do it. This builds that resilience and that sense that they know how to move about the world. And it also can be a great learning opportunity. When things go wrong, which they inevitably will, they will figure it out and they will have you there at home to process how things could be better next time. Another way to promote this independence would be to drop your child off about 5 minutes away from school if you use a car to get to school every day. And if possible, you could coordinate with other parents at your school to have all of their children walk together the rest of the way. This may seem like a simple alternative to getting to school, but number one, it would keep you out of the car line, which would be helpful. But also, this is just a great opportunity, again, for your children to build those self-confidence skills, those autonomy skills, and those social skills that are so helpful. The final area that people at home can help establish more healthy relationships with devices is to simply model healthy device use. One way that you can do this is to make a house-wide rule that all devices are put away and powered off or put on Do Not Disturb about 30 minutes at least before scheduled bedtime. Another important factor is that devices ideally should be kept out of bedrooms and should be only used in commons areas, which also means that they should be charged in these commons areas as well. Again, remember that one of the major harms that devices cause all of us is sleep deprivation. And when those devices are in the room, we know from previous videos, as we've discussed, that our brains simply function differently, even if we're not using them. The simple presence of them has been shown to decrease the sleep that we get, as well as the social interactions that we get. So keeping them out of the room at night is really important for sleep. Another way that healthy device use could be modeled at home is to decide as a household to take a device-free day once a week. And that would be a great opportunity for you and your children to figure out, what do we like to do without devices? How are we going to spend our time today? And it can be an opportunity for you to model even struggling at times to not look at your phone or to know what to do with your free time. This would be something that you would definitely want to talk about ahead of time so that your children and teenagers can prepare for. It could also be something that you could say, I'm going to do this for the Sunday or Saturday, And I would invite you guys to do it too, and maybe turn it into some kind of incentive or a challenge as a family. Who can go the longest without using their device? And finally, Jonathan Haidt recommends that when deciding when to introduce both of these things to children and teenagers, his recommendation is that we wait until 16 for all social media. And even then, it's important that prior to introducing social media to a child, that plenty of conversations are had about internet safety. And as it goes for smartphones, he advocates for waiting until high school for a child to have access to a smartphone. He recommends that we wait as long as possible to give a device of any kind to a child. If you do need your child to have a device of some type earlier than high school, then he says give them what we would have called a regular phone back in the day, or what we call a dumb phone now, so that they have texting and phone capabilities. Again, those are just a few of Jonathan Haidt's recommendations when it comes to what can be done at home to encourage and support healthier relationships with devices and social media. Thank you so much to those of you who have watched the entire series. I hope that this series and all these takeaways from the book have been helpful. I would highly recommend that you read the book for yourself or listen to it on audiobook. I, of course, had to cut out a lot of the amazing things that Jonathan shared and that I learned from the book, but I hope that this was enough to get you interested. If you've enjoyed any of this video today or found any of it helpful, I would love it if you would subscribe. And I would also love to hear any questions or things that you are curious about devices in the comments. I hope you have an amazing day, and go put your phone away for a while.